Hello, everyone, and welcome to your horoscope for the week of December the 9th till 15th, 2024. This is gonna be yet another very intense week full of ups and downs, surprising twists and turns of events, communication on fire. Oh, actually, that's an understatement. Communication is gonna be like a hurricane. And the thing is, communication just means sharing, or better said, information hitting you, but that information doesn't need to be true in itself. So a lot of information can be false, deceptive, etc., etc. So that's why this is also a brainstorming week. Like it or not, want it or not. Chances are this is one of those weeks where we can't live in a sea of denial, where we can't really shift out of, let's say, 3D reality as easily or at all as we usually do, because things are there to be contemplated, if not anything else. But chances are it's more than contemplation. Chances are this is where we are processing very, very important things, not just collectively speaking, as in us and the world, but also our own lives, our own story, our own inner world. So it's really, really busy from many perspectives. And Pluto just freshly moved out of Capricorn, but it hasn't picked up any speed really yet. So this is why the Capricorn collapsing part is still very much ongoing. It is still, and we could see this just the past few days in so very many ways. The Syrian events just freshly um, occurred, so to speak. It's really, really on. It's really ongoing. So this is why it's gonna be very, very tumultuous. Something is definitely gonna ask for our awareness, our contemplation, or our response in action in something, either if it comes collectively or individually speaking. But again, this is that period where collectively it can come very, very strongly, in the sense that just because, let me give you an example, you don't live in a very strong conflict zone, physically speaking, war zone, that doesn't mean you're off the hook, because there can be political turmoil in your region. For example, France. There can be spiritual turmoil in your region. I can't actually give a valid example for this, as in to exemplify what I mean, but I don't even need to. The whole world is. All we need to do is just look outside the window and we see that part playing out just at our doorstep, regardless of where we are and how it's manifesting. For some people, it's manifesting in a really pleasant, wonderful, beautiful way, but even that beautiful manifestation tells them that the times we are living are unlike any other. You get, and this week is, we're gonna feel this very strongly, that the times that we are living and experiencing are really unlike any other. No guidance, no GPS, no ancient wisdom, no anything other than our own resourcefulness, our own, now I wanted to say grounded, rational way of thinking, However, that would be very, very false, because this is also a period when the rationale simply is not enough, or better said, the rationale is at times much more counterproductive than useful. And I can actually exemplify this, because this is also when we observe that reality is really not as fixed, solid, not as fixed, solid, stable even as we thought all our lives. Saturn, the stability factor in the sign of Pisces. This is when quantum glitches and the weirdness, and I want to quote what one of my dear friends said to me when she shared one of her quantum, let's say, glitch experiences that went on in her life very, very recently. There is no spoon, and I think everyone knows what my friend and I'm saying by this. Yes, there is no spoon, so that in itself makes things that much more complicated if we necessarily want it. However, Pluto in Aquarius, it can also make it simpler. Why? If we abandon that, we're not going to understand it mercurially, Mercury retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius. That's a big advantage, because other navigation functions of our being start more intensely coming online and saying a word in our function, basically. Intuition, instinct, the gut, and sometimes the inner animal. Sometimes the inner animal knows best. Before there is big trouble, for example, in a mine, or, down below, when miners or workers or residents see rats fleeing for no apparent reason, they follow the rats without asking further questions. They just put down the tools and start running as well. That is because the inner animal just knows things that the inner animal knows. The inner animal is connected to nature's very own hyper senses and intelligence and everything that works faster than our improved, right, human intelligence. Is it improved then? Is it all that truly improved, right? So sometimes we can trust when the inner animal tells you that, I don't know, this is a red flag, even though rationally your eyes see the total opposite. And towards the very, very, very end of the week, we have a Gemini full moon that is exactly themed of what I just said. Is it true? Is it not true? And if it's not true, if I cannot trust anything, then what do I trust? How do I go forward? What do I do when I'm totally lost in thinking, in sight, in vision? I know we had the Mercury Sun Cazimi recently, but that Mercury Sun Cazimi told us everything that we shouldn't fully trust. It's helpful, but right now we don't see it as all that much helpful. So this is, in a nutshell, the week. Now let's get straight into it, because right at the beginning of the week, even without looking at any big aspects, three energies are sticking out on their own. One is the beginning of Mars' retrograde period season. We are feeling this, but feeling okay, we can see this play out on the world stage so very obviously. Syria and many other parts, Korea, Syria, things are not going as they usually go, if you know what I mean. Mars turning inwards. Enough is enough. Or sometimes action is required regardless. Sometimes, especially in the big picture, where it's maybe not us as just an individual in our life stories, but rather countries and big historic events. Sometimes, in that sense, fate is such that any action still produces something unpleasant, regardless of what action is taken. So then the leaders have to make the most difficult choices. Which one of the two is the lesser evil, or you get what I mean. I don't really need to put this in any more, highlight, because we get that we are living those times, but this is Mars retrograde. And this is where it starts off in Leo, in the heart. The moment of courage, or the moment when action is needed, the moment when maybe sometimes you're overpowered. But whenever I say overpowered or underpowered or power, understand it that always, 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 especially now, it's dual. When one element is overpowered, the other one is oppressed. Or, put it in any context, there is always a power game, power dynamic, power relation. So where if power goes to one direction, power will lack from the other, or it will trigger greater power. You get what I mean. So power changes, power flows, even in our personal lives. Relationships are not going to be very, very easy this week. We begin the week under Venus conjunct Pluto, Venus in both in Aquarius. So this is where we already know that collectively change is imminent. Collectively, at least from a Venusian perspective, which can represent values, money, economy, finances, and how our needs are being fulfilled. Any need, right? Because Aquarius is the human collective, as so that means the needs of a community collective, a group, but it means also of the individual. But at the same time, it also means the norm collectively of this. So it's complex because there's an opposition to Mars. So this energy, and this is the first, I do believe it's the first. I might be wrong. There might have been something in 2023, but I don't think really. I don't think. So this is one of the first oppositions between Mars and Pluto in this configuration, and Venus's presence just emphasizes it that much more. Venus is the female principle, Mars is the male, Venus is the passive, Mars is the active. So yin yang energy, this is where these two planets always operate one way or another with each other, based on one another, or what happens in each other's dimension, right? Let me give you an example. When Venus is greatly satisfied, Mars can be rest mode, lazy mode, not useful mode. Mars doesn't have to perform. when Venus is desperately in need, Mars has to like slave drive himself as energy, of course. This is how and an opposition and a Plutonian opposition. Mars has a very hard time because Venus dishes out her terms and conditions empowered by Pluto. So it's almost like it's almost like it's not Venus opposing Mars, but it's almost like Pluto represents both himself, right? But also Venus. So Mars negotiates not with his, how should I say, female, it's not counterpart, I need the other word. Like what makes him whole, complete, you know what I mean. But instead with, I don't know, a titan, a giant, something infinitely intimidating and more powerful than Mars. So you can imagine how the warrior, the hero, the Mars is not in an easy situation in any way, shape, and form. Mars loves being in the sign of Leo. This helps a lot. The fact that Mars converses with the North Node in his home sign of Aries, that also helps a lot. The fact that Venus converses the same way with the South Node in her home sign of Libra also helps a lot. Because these two trines to the rulers of the hosts of the nodes kind of gives a determination, gives a basically every resource in a resource invested into solving this opposition, because any opposition has to be resolved by a certain kind of compromise, or let's say in rare cases utter defeat, utter oppression of one of the planets and signs and expressions, right? One way or another. But usually it should be a harmonious compromise, or how should I say, harmonious division based on agreement, a depiction of compromise, really fancier words to say compromise, between the two planets, two signs, etc., etc. And an opposition very many times literally plays out in our lives. Let me give you an example. Venus opposing Mercury. This happens so very many times. As in, it happens at least once every year. A negotiation. Many times that's how it plays out. Even if it's negotiation with the self. Is it worth the money? Do I buy it? Do I need it sufficient? Or do I buy the luxury one or the cheapy one? It's an opposition where we have to come up with something to make the choice. Apply the same case in any planetary opposition or anything that is an opposition in astrology, where the two sides somehow have to be resolved. Again, the worst case scenario is where one of the planets and expressions is totally oppressed, where the other one is like bullied. For example, take a lunar eclipse, which is an opposition, but one that is super karmic fated. A lunar eclipse has a much greater immediate stir up crisis effect than a solar one. Usually, not it's not set in stone, but usually, So there you go, where an opposition many times is felt very, very strongly, and it really plays out in our lives. And we have not just this Venus conjunct Pluto opposition with Mars that's gonna should activate the opposition, the opposing. May this be a decision, a choice, one-on-one with a person, a contract, you're facing something, right? You're looking into something straight in the eye. May that be inside of you, symbolically, philosophically, literally, relationship, partnership, whatever. But we also have a Gemini one, a full moon. That means that the sun opposes the moon. And Gemini is especially where one-on-one communication, anything, even fist fight, right? Gemini, the hands, and Mars is the fight element. But where I'm going with this, it's gonna be an intense full moon. So words, confrontations, one will versus the other, one truth, one opinion. This is gonna be very opinionated, very, very divisional, as in two sides, whereas chances are both sides are just as bad. Like both sides that are gonna be greatly nuanced. Chances are it's neither. Let me give you an example. Oh, I shouldn't really use political stuff here. Two guys fall in love with you at the same time. It's quantum entanglement. It just happens. You can't help it. It wasn't your fault, neither theirs. And chances are you don't really, 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 really like any of them. Right? You know what I mean? Why did it happen to you? For you to observe very quickly something that you don't like and looking at it in both sides of the spectrum. This is something that is gonna any full moon is revelatory, reveal to us, what is no-go, what is not really it's gonna reveal where the lie is, where the illusion is, even if we cannot put our fingers on it, even just feeling it, sensing it in any way, shape, and form, that's sufficient. May it be collectively, where collectively it's not even symbolic. We can't literally, we got to the stage where, and I'm so sorry to say this, but at least this is how I live it. Literally, we cannot trust anything. When you hear something in the TV or any media, anything really, when a politician says something, chances are you immediately believe the opposite or put it into an opposition context where you believe the opposite more than what he says. Or when he says something, it triggers already anxiety and alarm bells because it may be true, it may not. It may be something authentic, genuine, because they do have to work sometimes, right? They do have to do something, but at the same time, it can be yet another trick, deception, falling into their schemes, We got to that stage, so this full moon is gonna really be like a circus show in that sense, where we cannot trust anything and anyone. We really, really got to that stage. And mistrust, collective mistrust, especially with Neptune, slowly and surely going direct this week, it breaks reality. You know, emotion, Neptune, Psi, the power of Psi. It's almost like lucid dreaming. When there's enough mistrust in the collective reality, it breaks. Like literally, it breaks. Because we bug it. Because in order for it to be stable, it needs to be ran as a program in that sense by our sense of normality and both communion, as in we are part of the same Cancer energy, right? Community, family, something part of, and community. That's self-explanatory. And these are parts of human basic needs. We need one another. Okay, hermits and stuff, but generally speaking, we need one another. We're built like bees. And Gemini is actually bee. A bee is a big symbol of Gemini. Cross-pollination energy. Speaking about Gemini, we also start the week with an opposition, yet another opposition, right? Full of oppositions. Sun and Jupiter. But this is in itself not a new energy. Why? Well, this week is when the Saturn and Jupiter squares starts forming, getting closer. We're starting to feel it. The sun just plays into this because it forms a not so exact T-square type of energy where the T-square points to Saturn. What is real? What is not? What can I trust? What can't I trust? Am I going crazy or not? Is reality breaking or am I high on something? Am I tripping? This is going to be part of this energy. I spoke so much about this Jupiter-Saturn square that I'm not going to speak about it any further because you get the idea. What is true, what is not true based on my perceptions, but at the same time, turn this inside out, and it's also valid and true. There are certain things in life which we need to give the meaning to because the meaning will not magic itself there. There are certain things in life, it's almost like you have a canvas, paint, and brush. There's one thing that maybe you don't even want to paint, right? You don't know. You just don't know. Okay, that's not a problem in itself. The problem is when you just stare at the canvas and the paint and don't do anything. The moment you take the brush in your hand and dip it into the paint and put it onto the canvas, that's when you're already on the go. You're already painting. And the fact that you don't have a idea of what you're doing, it is no longer a problem because it can be chaotic painting. It can be this this hyper futuristic, modern, non-figurative, this type of painting. It can be channeled. It can be auto writing. No problem. The alternative, no problem. That's absolutely fine. But own it. Put the brush on one hand, take the brush in your hand and then put it on the canvas. And then things start from there already. So this is what this energy asks of us. Not knowing is not necessarily a problem. Quite the contrary. Gemini, for some, not knowing is exactly what they need because then they can channel, improvise, higher knowing. Chaos can work through them. That's not a problem. Because some people are built that way. Some animals, some elements, some cosmological constructs are built that way. So it's not a problem at all in nature. So you get what I mean? And the same goes for when we have to give something a meaning. Whatever our soul uh, bursts, or I don't even know how spontaneous. If you're not versed with the highest philosophy, that's no problem at all. There are other ways, as long as you give meaning to things that demand this of you in life. For example, what does the divine want from me? You got 10 million signs already. Give them a meaning. Stop asking. You decide what they mean. For example, or what does he want from me? Because he keeps contacting me and he's nice and whatever, but he doesn't want to commit. What's the meaning? You give the meaning. Go to him and put down the ultimatum to the table, and you'll see the meaning immediately. You take the brush into your hands, and things will start. So this is how we begin the week. Then I said Mars still trines North Node in his home sign. Venus, the South Node in her home of Libra. So because the nodes are empowered exactly by the rulers of their host signs, this is when the sky inside of us and outside means business. This is where Venus trine South Node, the lessons of the past with relationship, worth, values, collective, what collective things not to trust and what you can trust. The lessons of the past year and a half roughly, apply those and everything's fine. And Mars trine this North Node. Remember why you're worth it. Remember compassion to the self. Remember that you can only share when you have something to share. The highest octave of the self-centered energy, where you're not necessarily doing it for the sake of ego. You're doing it because in order for you to do a bigger issue, bigger whatever, climb a bigger mountain there, you need to better yourself. So necessary self-centeredness. Mars trine the North Node is exactly this. And even better, Mars retrograde. Would you not have felt the motivation before why self-compassion is a must, or you're not feeling the love for the self? Now with Mars retrograde, you are going to be feeling it big time. Again, Venus trine the South Node helps this, not just because they oppose each other, Venus opposes Mars, but also because, as I said, South Node in Libra. Everything that went through relationship-wise in the past year and a half in our lives, it happened so for us to have our present A, either wisdom, or B, liberty, C, opportunity, D, desperation, whatever. But the purges in the relationships happen, so we get here to where we are exactly right now, whatever that means to us individually. Then moving on, the 10th. The 10th is, I find it important because Mercury retrograde trines the moon, a fire trine. And this moon is between the North Node and Chiron, while the sun trining Chiron. Healing, understanding, healing, Mercury retrograde, right? In Sagittarius, the higher understanding of healing. Let me give you an example. One way to solve anxiety is to go to the doctor, to the GP, and get the anxiety meds. Another way to solve it is to address the spirit of the fear in philosophy of what agitates you, and that will tune it down infinitely. There it is. It's a very, very profoundly healing energy. So I really, really, really like that. Moving on. Before I move on, I must mention all this under Jupiter, Saturn starting to strengthen their square, make it more and more exact with each passing day. So brainstorming, really figuring stuff out, and Saturn in Pisces, healing, emotional purge, forgiveness, coming to terms with the past. And we really need to clean out the psyche at this time, because the North Node is dipping into Pisces very, very, very soon. North Node into Pisces, let's dream the dream that's gonna get us far. Let's abandon the illusions. Let's abandon those dreams that are important to us just because we had lacks in the past, or we had bad experiences, and those are the honey, or those are the plaster. No, let's abandon that altogether, and let's put everything towards the dream that will get us to proper happiness in the future. So this is what the North Node will mean in Pisces. Purging, yes, but also coming up with the faith, the true, pure, self-empowered, compassion-based faith and love to get you there, to believe in your healing, but at the same time, the dream, the fantasy, perhaps the romance, the love, not specific love, but rather just the vibe of cosmic love, to be omnipresent, for you to breathe it every second of your life. And that's where the game will change. Everything will change. The world around you will change. You will be an anomaly of love, which will simply banish the opposite of love. But that's another chapter. North Node still in Aries and Mars trining it. Yes, we need to work for the self. On the 11th, Sun trines Chiron. And Sun and Sag trines Chiron. Faith healing. Sometimes healing doesn't need to make any kind of rational sense. Sometimes healing can be simply yet another anomaly. Poof, the tumor is gone. There you go, right? The way we can believe things into existence, the same way we can unbelieve things from existing in our dimension, or our reality at least. And our body is definitely ours, right? But of course, this needs sufficient fuel and the right frequency of belief. So of course, not everyone will do it in one go. But yeah, you get what I mean. This is such a good moment for faith healing. On the 12th, we can see that Venus kind of opposes Mars, perfect their opposition. But I already spoke about this energy. Venus and Aquarius, the collective, but also what's out there. Mars and Leo, the individual, what's in the heart. This energy, because especially because it's Mars retrograde, it can play out in so very many ways, from something deeply personal to very non-personal. I need a new, I don't know, whatever piece of clothing, and I go to the shop. Do I follow the trend Venus in Aquarius, or do I go against it? Well, chances are, if I rebel against it, and if I choose clothes just for the sake of rebellion, that's just me in a different version of, I'm just them. I'm just the world, really. Just a different version of it. However, if I really consider both my needs and the world and stuff like, and choose something that really resonates with me in a decent, non-necessarily Mars opposing Pluto too, not necessarily self-expressing way, where it's okay for my self-expression not to be acknowledged, loved, seen by anyone. This is where this energy aggressively goes against I identify as. And these types of permissivenesses, no. This is where can definitely exist a compromise where both I am happy, Mars and Leo, right? Me, my style, my self-expression, my art, and also the collective norm. Where the collective norm, Aquarius is dual. It doesn't necessarily mean just the modern BS. It can also mean the eternal, because the co-ruler of Aquarius is Saturn, the eternal decency. There is decency, which is timeless, that is simply linked to the human spirit. There's that, and that needs to be respected. So you get what I mean, but this is also financial energy, Venus. Everyone has that, whatever that is, phone, software, game, whatever, Venus in Aquarius, that. Do I buy it or do I not? Or, Mars, what do I do? However, there is a need, because Venus is usually need, that everyone has. And the thing is, I have it too, but I don't want to be everyone. So what do I do? Do I satisfy my needs alternatively? Or do I simply shut down my need? Remember those moments when the opposition totally overpowers the planet. Mars in Leo would be that, because it's opposed both by Venus and Pluto, remember? Where it's bye-bye Mars, that's it. The desire is just snuffed out. The monk. Well, the monk may enjoy certain manual pleasure, but he will never permit himself to enjoy the real deal, ever, in any way, shape, and form. A play, a game is okay, because everyone falls into temptation, but the real deal, nah, because you won't be a monk after, if you do it, all right? So this type of energy, sometimes, depending on your own specific, unique circumstances, sometimes Mars is eliminated. The desire is bye-bye. However, what does that do? Hard it is, but it will free you, because if a desire has no power over you, you're freer than any other man. So you know what, you get the picture. Power dynamic, pros and cons. Mars-Venus opposition. Then we go to the 13th, where the moon is going to conjunct Uranus. We're going to definitely be feeling something. Something shocking, something revolutionary, right? Something's going to shock us, revolt. It can be also something technology, some kind of weather phenomenon that is unusual. Something may rock our world either with the element of water or emotionally speaking, politically speaking, a political earthquake of the highest magnitude somewhere or in many parts. Then finally we get to the full moon day, the 15th. So I'm not gonna speak all that much about this full moon because I'll probably have a separate video out, but I already said the essence of it, really, because that's the division. You see, the moon, sun, Neptune, so it's a T-square. It's not super exact, yet it doesn't matter, because Neptune himself, super strong, because it's still pretty much standing still. Demasking something, a revelation, a shocking truth, communication. Which side do I take? Or should I not take any side whatsoever? In my country, for example, Romania, this played out already. So there were presidential elections, and two very unlikely candidates came to the final round. And I say very, very, very unlikely, which neither of them, like visibly, noticeably, doesn't have either the power or the charisma or the expertise or anything to fulfill the role. So it's like a puppet in disguise. And they were cancelled. You know, so what will happen now under Neptune? Total enigma, total mystery. This is where the BS thickens to the absurdity level. A perfect new moon in Gemini. Because then you say, I don't care about the two candidates. I care about everyone is not right in the head who is at the government. There you go, the best possible way of. But when many, many people have this full moon dealing with a deeper Mercury trine, Mars, understanding of it, the heart understands sufficiently. Enough is enough. Enough is enough moments are gonna definitely. And the news media is gonna be on fire. Censorship in some places and the violence that will trigger. Other places, the internet censor. Other places, the internet cut off. Other places, there's gonna be a lot of turmoil. The internet, media, TV, speech, communication, everything is gonna be on fire. Individually as well. For example, busy period at work, friends, family, someone will agitate you. Something will agitate you. Something will definitely bring a bit of chaos into your life. So that's why we must make sure it's creational chaos. That's why I always insist that when life asks us to give a meaning to something, if we give the meaning in a wise way, creational chaos is going to benefit us. How, you might ask? Chaos does react to benevolence. So it can turn an imminent tragic disaster into a joke. You know, I almost slipped. Would I have slipped? Oh my goodness. That is benevolent chaos. Or you find a injured kitten. Well, you can imagine that it will upset you, but imagine the possibilities that the injured kitten just opened for you. This friend, this family member, that family member. If this Facebook ad, it will connect you to someone 1 trillion%. And injured kitten, what's the compassion, right? You see what I mean? It opened up some kind of good compassion-based door for you, where it doesn't matter who you will meet, you will still, the worst case scenario, smile, what a wonderful person you are, that is guaranteed to be harvested from this experience. If not a new pet, or if not something, right? When the meaning we give to things opens up the good side of chaos. The same can be done in the opposite way. Fear, mistrust. I'm always the victim, will make chaos, not want to be humorous and nice and playful. So you know what I mean? People who usually fear chaos altogether are not per se lucky. You know what I mean? Moments of luck will not manifest in their lives. But why? Because they're blind to it. In my life, I met so very many people who considered themselves unlucky. And when I dished up the list of lucks, big fortunes in their lives, this, that, everything had a good excuse there. So you see what I mean? Sometimes luck is only a perspective. Other lucky people who consider themselves lucky, after I heard their stories, well, to me, it says that they're actually very unlucky. However, because the person who they are, that I don't even know how to name it, that extra niceness at the core of their being makes chaos save them. You know what? And to them, it seems like they're so lucky. But from a different point of view, you're actually unlucky, but unluck can't really hurt you much. So, of course, it seems like luck. You know what I mean? So, luck and Jupiter in Gemini, retrograde, oppose at the beginning of the week, oppose the sun. This can be so clearly one of the expressions of what is luck to me? Am I lucky? Or identify how Jupiter works in your life. Where you have the Jupiter factor, where your faith runs the show and you don't even know it. So I hope this was useful. Let's not panic. And this is my guidance. It's gonna be wild, a circus, scary, weird. Try not to panic in the sense that, in the truest sense, we are the generators of our own reality. We don't have to own the collective chaos. It's ugly parts. That's why I just previously gave my version of chaos theory, because if we don't fear it, if we don't own the destructions and suffering, and not in the sense of it's not happening. Oh, it's happening. It's happening. don't own it in the sense that, and still the human spirit is not defeated. And still it's not enough to bury the human spirit. It's not enough to defeat hope. It's not enough to defeat love. In this sense, you don't own it. And it still didn't make your heart cower. It still didn't defeat your love. It still didn't take your hope away and who you are in your heart. In this sense, you're not owning that. So this is what we must do, really, really. So thank you, everyone. Until next time, bye for now.